So, hi everybody. I'm just going to do a brief introduction to me before we get into the nitty-gritty of what I'm going to cover today. So, I'm Helen Ritchie. I'm a clinical nutritionist, and when I was hit with menopause symptoms 7 years ago, it completely disrupted my life and career and my ability to do my job. So at the time, I was working in marketing in the tech industry, quite a senior role. And when the symptoms hit me, I didn't actually know it was brain fog, but I just felt unable to do my job. And I ultimately, it's a very long story, but the very short version is that I ended up getting fired from my job. And very shocking. It was an unfair dismissal, but after 30 years in that career, I decided that I had to do something different. So that was why I decided to retrain in nutrition. At the time, the doctors were unable to help me. They couldn't prescribe HRT to me because I had breast cancer the year before. So I had to look at all the nutrition and different ways that I could sort myself out without a prescription. So today, in just the 1 hour that we've got together, I'm going to be providing an overview of how you can use food as medicine to manage your symptoms naturally. I don't think there's enough discussion, education and awareness about the power of food for lots of things, not just menopause. And I think we just overlook it, and a lot of people poo-poo the fact that food can make a difference, and it's not really sufficiently powerful, especially when you're dealing with what can be quite life-disrupting symptoms. But this is completely not true. I've worked with many women, from those who want to manage their menopause completely naturally without any medication, to those that want to start with nutrition and see where it takes them, to those that are already taking HRT, but it's not quite resolving everything, or they're unable to lose weight. And ultimately, at the end of the program, they've had to reduce their HRT dosage. So it just goes to show that, nutrition, lifestyle can make a difference. So I mainly work one-to-one with clients on a 12-week program called the Menopause Method. And what I'm going to be covering today, the food element, is what I deep dive into with all of my clients. So it's pretty much the same information. So I'm going to be talking about the 5 key pillars that underpin good nutrition. And as I said, sometimes these factors in themselves can fix your symptoms, but it is a complex picture. I just need to... Yikes, why can't I change slides? Bear with me a second. There you go. So food is just one factor, it's one piece of the jigsaw, and there are many other things that affect how you feel, that affect your hormones. You may have noticed that stress drives symptoms, make you feel worse, lack of sleep. Alcohol as well. It's important to do exercise. Your mindset plays a role as well. So it's been shown that those that have a positive attitude towards life and their menopause symptoms will experience 30% fewer symptoms. And things like toxins, which again is an area that's not really covered much. So I'm talking about the chemicals in your everyday cleaning products, to your skincare, your beauty products. Those can disrupt your hormones, the chemicals. So I always recommend using brands that don't. I particularly favour Tropic skincare, makeup and hair care, because they don't contain any nasty chemicals. So all of these things play a role. Obviously, HRT is not something that I deal with. I'm not a doctor, but I just put it on there because it is a solution, but it's only one part of the puzzle. So these are all other things that you need to consider. And supplements as well. There are supplements that can help. I'm not going to be talking about supplements today, but I do prescribe supplements for some of my clients. So moving on. Right, the next slide is not meant to scare you. It's a really complex slide that people like myself, nutritional therapists, know. And really, I just wanted to show you that I think when you hear hormones discussed in the media, you know, we hear about estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, and there are others, but they're very complex. You know, there's millions of chemical processes happening in your body every single second, and hormones aren't just produced, they're produced as a result of chemical processes through enzymes and proteins, and you don't need to know this at all. But the reason why I'm showing it is just first to highlight that hormones are complex and there's lots of factors therefore that impact them, but also I am going to be touching on a couple of chemical processes, I guess, or enzymes that your food impacts. So without getting too sciencey, I feel it's important that you understand. So don't worry about that. That's all I wanted to say about that. And I forgot to say, if you've got any questions, please feel free to unmute yourself and ask, or put the question in the chat if you're watching later. Please message me and I will respond. So let's get started talking about how you can use food as medicine. So the first pillar I'm going to talk about is carbs, controlling the carbs. And I believe this is one of the most important and fundamental ways of managing your symptoms, managing your hormones, if you do nothing else. So, I mean, we all know that sugar is not healthy, whether that's sugar added to food or drinks, or in the form of donuts or cakes, biscuits. This is not news to you, I'm sure. You know it's not great for your health, but do you know why? So when you eat, would everybody mind putting themselves on mute, please, just so that the recording's clean? And please feel free to unmute if you want to ask any questions. So when you eat sugary foods, they are broken down very quickly by your body and they enter your bloodstream as glucose. And I'm going to use the word blood glucose. Actually, it's the same, interchangeable as blood sugar. And so the sugar enters your blood quickly and causes a spike in your blood glucose. And glucose is dangerous. It's dangerous to your blood. It makes it sticky. It's dangerous to your body. So your pancreas produces another hormone called insulin, which you've probably heard of. And the role of insulin is to get that glucose out of your blood and pushes it into various cells around your body to use it as an energy source. It's a fuel. And when this has happened, your blood glucose levels fall and all should be well. The issue is that you only need a very, very small amount in your blood at any one time. The equivalent of 1 teaspoon, which is about 4 grams. So you can see if you're eating a lot of sugary foods, then this could be a problem. However, it's not just sugar, it's the starchy carbs, especially the refined white carbs, that also break down in your blood as glucose, as sugar. So you might not, looking at the slide here, there's some chips, there's some rice, there's some pasta, there's some bread. You look at those and you don't think sugar, but your body, when it's broken down, especially the very white refined versions of these, your body identifies it as sugar, as blood glucose. So the combined effect of eating refined carbs and sugar causes these spikes and dips, which I mentioned is dangerous to your body. And you end up on what I call the blood sugar roller coaster. So both your blood glucose, your blood sugar, and your insulin levels need to be kept within a very narrow range to be healthy. And especially at perimenopause and menopause. And these dips, when you're out of range, so on here, on the slide, you can see the green range, which is the balanced range, the in range. So when you're eating sugary and refined starchy foods that spike out of range, anything that goes up has to come down. And these can be responsible for symptoms like feeling tired, feeling hangry, driving mood swings, energy crashes, depression. So many of us that are eating many sugary and starchy foods end up on this blood sugar roller coaster. And apart from being bad for the body, it's driving many of your symptoms. And I'm going to explain in more detail why. Because insulin, so when you're out of range and you're producing more glucose than you need, so remember it's just 1 teaspoon at any one time, say for an hour, unless you're running, exercising to use up that fuel, and insulin is being produced. When you're producing so much by eating these foods, your body doesn't know what to do with it. You're not using it as energy. So what happens is it gets shunted off to your liver and it's stored as fat. And when your stores in your liver are full, it then deposits itself as fat. So insulin is called the fat storage hormone. And one of the reasons why it's important to manage and balance your blood sugar at any time in life, but especially at perimenopause and menopause, is that it's impossible to lose weight when you've got insulin present. As I said, it's the fat storage hormone. Oh, just sorry, bear with me a second. I've just got a message from someone that can't get in. Let me just send them a... Does that make sense? Sorry. Right. Okay. So it's the fat storage hormone. We become more sensitive to insulin as we age and as we enter perimenopause or menopause, which can be one of the reasons why there's a tendency to put on weight, which means that being more sensitive to insulin means that we just don't respond. Our body just doesn't respond as well to those spikes in blood glucose. And it can get to the point where you can become insulin resistant, which means that your body doesn't respond at all. So that's the first reason why you need to be careful with carbs, to avoid the weight gain and to enable weight loss if that's what you're looking to do. Plus, your metabolism does start to slow down as you age. Sorry, I've got more messages from people that can't access via Eventbrite. Nightmare. Okay. Sorry for the interruptions. So that's one reason why you need to manage your blood sugar. But remember the complex diagram I showed you about your hormones, about the chemical processes happening in your body. Well, another reason, two more reasons actually, insulin plays havoc with your hormones in other ways. One of the ways is through a protein called sex hormone binding globulin. I don't want to get too sciencey, but this attaches itself, binds to your hormones to transport them around your body at any one time. So anything not bound to this protein is free in your blood, which means that it's free to be used. So insulin, when you've got insulin present, and especially too much insulin, reduces the level of this protein, which means you have more free hormone available, which is not a good thing, and causes an imbalance. And this can drive symptoms. We've already talked about weight gain, but hot flushes, night sweats, mood swings, irritability. If it's causing an excess testosterone, that can lead to things like excess hair on the face, also conditions like polycystic ovaries, and again can drive insulin resistance. So that's another way that insulin plays havoc with your hormones. And there is a further way. So as I said, it reduces that protein, so you've got more free hormone, but it also increases another enzyme called aromatase. And this enzyme is used in the chemical process to convert testosterone into estrogen. And so again, if this enzyme is too high, because insulin is causing it to be too high, you're converting more through the process into estrogen, which again is not a good thing. Everything in our bodies is controlled and has a level which is healthy and safe. And it sounds a bit counterintuitive when we all think about menopause and perimenopause as being, having too low levels of estrogen and progesterone. You might think, well, I don't understand. Isn't it a good thing that I've got more? And the answer is no, it doesn't really work like that. It's an imbalance. And these two, and the enzyme and the protein that I've mentioned, you don't need to worry about them. Just I wanted to understand, help you understand why insulin and blood glucose is important to manage, because when you have these imbalances, you can get what is called estrogen dominance. It's a bit of an old-fashioned term now, but that does play a role in conditions like fibroids and endometriosis. So typical signs of hormonal imbalance are painful, heavy, irregular periods. And it really annoys me that I didn't know this like 30, 40 years ago when I was still having periods. We all just accept that we've got period pain or we've got PMS. But that is a sign that there's something not quite right. It's not healthy. So your periods are actually a barometer of your overall health. Breast tenderness, obviously all the perimenopause and menopausal symptoms like hot flushes, night sweats, irritability, mood swings, carb cravings, headaches, fatigue, poor cognition, poor memory, depression, anxiety, low libido, vaginal dryness, isn't it an awful list? Insomnia, excess hair, acne. Anyway, so these are all symptoms of a hormonal imbalance that could be being driven by what you're eating. So what does it actually mean for what you need to eat? So it means definitely cutting out or down the sugars that you're eating and the refined carbs, and replacing them with the more unrefined, unprocessed whole grains or complex carbs, which means they break down more slowly into glucose in the blood. So think about switching from white rice to brown whole grain rice, white pasta to brown whole grain pasta, or lentils, white bread to whole grain bread, with seeds ideally, but also bread in itself, just because it's brown bread doesn't mean to say it's healthy. A lot of the bread that you buy in the supermarket has got added sugar, even if it's brown whole grain bread and has been highly processed. So you want to be looking for the most natural, minimally processed carbs you can find. Whole jumbo oat steel cup porridge instead of processed breakfast cereal. And if you're concerned about weight and you're wanting to lose weight, I really recommend cutting these out, or at least managing your portion sizes, even the whole grain carbs. And that includes starchy veg as well, such as potatoes. And to illustrate what I mean, one of the it's a well-known GP who's created these wonderful diagrams that show, this is for his diabetic patients, but they're equally illuminating to anybody that is looking to manage their menopause symptoms or lose weight or whatever you're concerned. But it shows you that how many teaspoons of sugar are in these common foods that you wouldn't normally consider as being sugar. So basmati rice is a key offender. So in 150 gram serving, there's 10 teaspoons of sugar. And bearing in mind what I said earlier, about how you only need 1 teaspoon of sugar or glucose in your blood at any time to avoid you getting on the roller coaster that we talked about. White potatoes, French fries, white spaghetti, sweet corn again is quite sugary, frozen peas, not too bad. Banana is quite sugary as well, especially if they're ripe. And so are the other exotic fruits like pineapple, mango, papaya. They're high in sugar too. So these are all things that you need to be aware of that can be driving symptoms and putting you on that blood glucose roller coaster. So just to summarize this pillar, the controlling the carbs, this is just to show you in a different form. If you're eating the sugary foods, you get the big spikes out of range. If you're eating the refined white carbs, you're getting spikes, maybe not as high as the sugary spikes. It's still entering your blood. The sugar is still entering your blood quite quickly, but it's still out of range. And then whole grains, fruit, veggies, legumes, they are slow release carbs. So that is what you need to be aiming for. Although we're not talking about this today, you need to also note that stress drives blood sugar spikes, alcohol as well, caffeine can, and lack of sleep. They can all affect your blood glucose levels, but we're not focused on that. We're focused on food today in the time we have. So if you've got any questions, please, please say. Otherwise, I'm going to move on to the second pillar, which is about the need to pump up the protein, eat enough protein. Many of us, especially women, are not eating enough. And protein is an essential building block for so many things in the body, but especially your hormone transporters and enzymes, which we've touched on. And it's really important for helping you feel full. Plus, if you eat some protein with some sugar or starchy carbs, refined or otherwise, it does slow down the release into your blood. So, for example, if you're eating a banana and you want to slow down that sugar spike, eat it with a couple of nuts. So protein is so important for the growth and repair of all your cells, especially for recovering from injury, your skin, your hair, your nails, which can often be affected at menopause. They're all made of protein, as are your muscles and your bones. And it's essential for mental health. So your body uses the amino acids in the protein to generate neurotransmitters. Now, you might have heard of serotonin in relation to mood and depression, but that isn't the only neurotransmitter. There's also adrenaline, dopamine, GABA. They are all neurotransmitters with a feel-good factor that help your motivation, concentration, memory, and they help you manage stress as well. So low levels of these neurotransmitters leave you feeling lethargic, demotivated, maybe a bit down. So ensuring you're eating enough protein at every meal is vital, starting with breakfast, to give your body the tools it needs to support your brain, your hormones, your nervous system. I mentioned earlier that it also keeps you feeling fuller longer. So think quality protein, ideally, depending on your budget, grass-fed, organic or wild meat, chicken or wild or organic fish, eggs, dairy, pulses, hummus, soy, quinoa, nuts and seeds. And they also not only provide protein, but also a lot of vitamins that are crucial for your hormones. So you need to be aware of the concept also of complete proteins. So there are 9, some people say 8, 9 essential amino acids. Anything essential means that you have to get it from your food. Your body can't make it. So all animal proteins are complete. In that means that they contain all 9 essential amino acids. On this particular slide, you'll notice I've got tofu on there, which obviously isn't an animal protein. It's made of soybeans, which is why I've highlighted it a different colour, but it is a complete protein. So if you're vegetarian and vegan, which I'll come on to in a moment, most protein sources are not complete in all 9 essential amino acids. So you need to be careful about what you're eating and think about your diet to make sure you're getting all of them. And so the other point about this slide is just to be aware also of the density of the protein in a food. So animal products are more protein rich, essentially, is what I'm saying, than some of the others, starting with, clams, cheese, beef, chicken. They're all higher protein, dense than vegetable proteins. When it comes to vegetable proteins, as I mentioned, they're less protein dense. Almonds are quite high, and also not complete. Other than I mentioned, what did I mention? Tofu, and quinoa is a complete protein as well. Other vegetable proteins that are complete in all the amino acids are amaranth and buckwheat. Let me just check. Just want to check the questions. Okay. Okay, right. So Nikki's just asking what other nasty chemicals that you would avoid. So going back to my introduction when I was saying toxins are to be avoided, even though it's not really the subject of what we're talking about today. So anything in personal care products and makeup, shampoos, etc., such as parabens, sodium lauryl sulfate, and all the chemicals in household cleaning products. I mean, there are many more. And Claire's saying, it's directly to me, talking about insulin resistance. I can talk to you separately, Claire, if you like. Claire does a lot of competitive sport, struggling to find the balance, meeting training needs without the carbs. I understand that. Although I have worked with some women that are doing quite extensive training, and I know many other people that exercise following keto, i.e. no carbs, which isn't necessarily what I'm recommending, but it is possible, but we can have a separate chat about that. So that's the second thing. So we talked about carbs, managing your blood glucose, we talked about eating enough protein. What is it? How much is enough? Generally, I say about 20 grams per meal, about 60 grams a day. You can work it out based on your body weight. As you get older, you need more protein to stop muscle wastage. So about 1.1 gram per kilo of body weight is what you need to think about. If that's too much, just think about 20 grams. So depending on if you're having eggs, if they're very small eggs, that might be 3 eggs. Or if they're larger eggs, that could be 2 eggs. And if you're eating a chicken breast or a piece of steak, that is not a lot. 20 grams of protein is much easier to get from animal foods. Okay, so moving on. So the third pillar sorry, I'm having problems with my slides. The third pillar is not to be scared of fat. One of the common mistakes I see women making is avoiding fat completely, and this is a bit of a hangover from the 1980s, the low fat era, which was really based on bad science. However, we're still living in a very fat phobic society, and the fear that eating fat will make you fat. And I just like to say that that is not the case. It's more likely to be the sugar and the starches and the imbalanced blood sugar and insulin that are driving weight gain. And the problem with low-fat diets is that they can really badly affect your hormonal balance. Fat is hard to overeat because it fills you up very fat. Although if you're a bit of a cheese monster, that you need to be careful with cheese, but not go mad, like eat a whole block in one go. But generally, it is hard to overeat fat because it does fill you up. And the reason why fat is so important, especially for your hormones at menopause, perimenopause, is that your sex hormones are made from fat. In fact, they're made from cholesterol, which is vital for life and plays many important roles in the body. So again, cholesterol gets a bad name. Everybody seems to be scared of it. But it is an essential building block of estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, and vitamin D. So they're all pretty much the same chemical structure. So if you're not eating enough fat, that's one way that it could be affecting how your hormones work. Signs that you're not eating enough fat: dry skin, fatigue, aching joints, memory loss, brain fog, inflammation, things like, by that I mean breast pain, heavy periods. Fat is really nature's lubricant. And the other reason why you need to make sure you're eating enough fat is that even if the rest of your diet is really, really good, you're eating lots of fruit and vegetables that we're going to come on to, you're eating enough protein. But if you're eating low fat, your body may not be able to absorb all the vitamins and minerals that it needs to from the food. You need fat to be able to absorb the vitamins and minerals, and the fat-soluble vitamins, vitamins A, vitamin D, vitamin E, vitamin K, that your body needs to function. So healthy fats, we're talking about extra virgin olive oil, nuts, seeds, avocado. I mean, your brain is 60% fat, and 20% of the cholesterol in your body is in your brain. So eating enough fat is vital, especially omega-3 essential fatty acids. Again, anything that is essential means your body can't make it, you have to eat it. And this is particularly important for symptoms like brain fog. So brain fog, memory, even hot flushes, mood swings, skin, joints, and heart health. And it can help reduce aches and pains, increase your energy levels, libido. And there is research that shows that eating sufficient omega-3 fatty acids can also help prevent dementia. So omega-3, it's anti-inflammatory, so which is good. It dampens down any damage in the body. It can reduce the risk of estrogen dominance and some of the processes that I talked about when we were talking about insulin, the aromatase enzyme, blood sugar balance. It can help with that. And I've seen it make a huge difference to hormonal balance. It also helps to keep all your cell membrane, so the areas around each of your cell, healthy and fluid to allow different substances, including hormones, to come in and out of your cells. So oily fish, and I know some people really don't like oily fish, but this is where the best sources of omega-3 fatty acids are. Salmon, mackerel, anchovies, sardines, herring, trout are the main ones. And you really need to be eating 2 to 3 portions of those a week. And if you don't like oily fish, I really think it's worth considering supplementing omega-3. There are also omega-3 in chia seeds, walnuts, flax seeds, just not as much. And so as well as the omega-3s, we talked about healthy fats as well, extra virgin olive oil, nuts and seeds. Fats to avoid are vegetable oils. So we have been led to believe that oils like sunflower oils, rapeseed oil are healthy, but in fact they are not. Unless they are cold pressed, most of them have gone through a horrific processing process processing process, horrific refinery process, I can't think of the right words, to produce the oil, which can be toxic to the body. So definitely avoid them. Margarine, again, is something that is unnatural. Any spreads I would avoid. I would eat real butter or extra virgin olive oil. And trans fats that are, you don't normally buy them, but they can be in some ultra processed food. And there is a lot of talk about the dangers of ultra processed food and how they contain many substances that are toxic to your brain and to your body. And anything that is toxic, anything that you take in that your body can't deal with, tends to get stored in your fat cells, to lock them away, to keep you safe. So really do avoid these fats. Just check chat. Trevor is asking, is Greek yogurt a good source? Yes, Greek yogurt, full fat Greek yogurt is great. It's a great source of fat as well as protein. Goose fat for roast potatoes, yes, goose fat is fine. So is lard. I mean, you don't normally make roast potatoes with lard, I know, but surprisingly, lard is fine to eat. How best manage them with high cholesterol? Okay, so high cholesterol is likely, well, I didn't mention when I was talking about cholesterol that 80% of your body's needs for cholesterol is made by your liver. And so what you take in through food is minimal, and if you take in more through food, your body will adjust. So high cholesterol is impacted by a number of things, but it's more likely to be the sugar and starchy foods that are driving cholesterol than the fat that you're taking in. I've seen many people, especially, didn't mention this, but I do some work in a GP surgery in Maidenhead, running courses, and I've seen many of the patients there, when they adopt a lower carb approach to eating, have their cholesterol levels fall. But cholesterol really isn't the baddie it's made out to be, and I'm not going to get into a discussion about that any further, but happy to have a separate chat with anybody about that. So that's the third one. So we've covered blood glucose, protein, and fat. The fourth area is, if I can just is feeding your inner garden, your gut bugs. So this is an increasingly important area of research and information, but the community of bacteria, viruses, fungi that live in your gut, well, they're all over your body, but the largest community lives in your gut, is vital for health, but especially for menopause symptoms, because 60% of your hormones are produced in your gut, and these bacteria help regulate, amongst other things, your estrogen levels. So we actually have more of these bacterial cells than we do human cells, which is mind-boggling. So it's essential to have not only a diverse range of all the different species, but a balance of what could be termed friendly, as per the telly adverts, for friendly bacteria versus unfriendly. But if you think of it as your own inner garden or veg patch, which is entirely unique to you, everybody's is different, then eating the wrong food, so by that I mean the sugary, starchy foods, feeds the not so good bacteria, and it feeds what essentially are weeds, which are stopping or could be crowding out the good bacteria. So the best way to ensure you're feeding your gut bugs is by eating a wide range of different coloured fruit and veg. So all the different colours contain different plant nutrients, polyphenols, They all are slightly different. They all feed different species of gut bugs, and they contain fiber, which is what they feed on. So I mentioned that the sugary, starchy carbs encourage the growth of the less beneficial bacteria, the weeds. And the reason why you need to feed your gut bugs with a wide range of different coloured vegetables and fruits, the low sugar variety, is that not only does it affect your hormones that I've mentioned, but it's related to efficient digestion. 70% of your immune system is based in your gut. It also, having a healthy community of gut bugs, helps you balance your blood sugar too. And one of the things when it comes to menopause related to gut that is really important is that if you have too many of the not so good bacteria, they produce another enzyme which can, if it's too high, because your gut is not in a healthy state as it can be, it stops estrogen that's been used by your body from being removed. And once anything's used, it has to be removed. It goes through a chemical process in the liver, and this is vital for hormonal balance. So what this enzyme does, if it's got too much of it, it essentially stops it from estrogen from being processed and excreted. And when estrogen has started going through this chemical process to get it into a form that can be excreted, so being turned from a fat into a liquid form, it's more toxic. So having your gut in a good state is vital, because again, this is another way that your balance of hormones, or that you could be increasing your estrogen load or levels, and it's not a good thing. So eating enough vegetables, we think about, you probably heard the government talk about 5 a day. It's really not enough. It should be 7 a day, and we talk about trying to eat 30 different types a week, 30 different types of vegetables, fruits, but it's also nuts, seeds, herbs, spices, and it sounds like a lot, but actually it's not that many if you start counting. And so green leafy vegetables should be eaten in abundance. They also contain folic acid, which helps the elimination of hormones from your body. And there's certain group of vegetables called cruciferous vegetables, like broccoli, cauliflower, kale, Brussels sprouts, cabbage, rocket watercress. These are all hormonal superfoods. They again help support your liver. Could everybody make sure they're on mute, please, while I'm recording? Sorry, just to keep the recording clean. So these are superfoods because they support your liver processes that process the hormones to ensure that they're excreted from your body and they're not recirculating in a more toxic form. So eat as many of these cruciferous vegetables as you can, at least a portion a week. If you've got a lot of symptoms, maybe even every day. So some vegetables are particularly high in what we call prebiotic fiber, which essentially means they act like a fertilizer on your gut bugs. So you're feeding your community, your inner garden, things like onions, leeks, lentils, sweet potatoes, asparagus, chicory, oats, brown rice, flax seeds. They are all soluble fiber, prebiotic. They will act like a fertilizer on your gut bugs, so eat lots of those. So that's prebiotic.
Helen,
yes,
you should be able to mute anybody because you're the host.
okay.
If you hover over them, you should be able to mute them.
Okay, you're very yeah you're right. Sorry, thank you for that. So talked about prebiotic fertilizer on your gut bugs. You've probably heard of probiotics because you can take them as supplements, but you don't need to take supplements because you can get, they contain live beneficial bacteria and you can get them in fermented foods. So you don't have to take a probiotic supplement. So if you're thinking about live natural yogurt, kefir, aged cheese, fermented vegetables, things like sauerkraut, kimchi, kombucha, which is fermented tea. These are all fermented foods that have live cultures in that can really stimulate your gut bugs in a good way. Also, be aware that alcohol, unfortunately, acts like a weed killer and encourages the growth of the not so good bacteria and can increase the enzyme I mentioned, the beta-glucuronidase, that can impact your hormone detoxification processes. So a healthy gut flora can help control levels of that. And I'm sure you're all aware that antibiotics also wipe out huge communities of gut microbes, and it can take weeks, months, years to rebuild if you're not eating properly, and also if you've had multiple courses of antibiotics. Plus all the other factors I talked about at the beginning that are key to being healthy at menopause, perimenopause: exercise, sleep. They also support healthy gut environment, and fasting as well can also help. And if you're suffering from, or you know anybody that suffers from conditions like endometriosis, there's a very strong link between gut and endo. Okay, that was pillar 4, time's ticking. The last one, which is actually related to pillar, gone far too fast. Pillar 5 is to eat phytoestrogen. So phyto just means plant. So we're talking about more plant foods. Phytoestrogens are some plant foods weakly mimic human estrogen, but many times weaker. But some of these phytoestrogens are quite magical. So in menopause, when your estrogen levels are low, they can help to raise them. But also in perimenopause, when your estrogen levels could be high then low, they can also help lower them. And so they can also help with symptoms. You know, I've seen them, phytoestrogens help with hot flushes, night sweats. Also, you know, not in menopause, but PMS, heavy periods. Again, they can help normalize blood sugar and support the prevention of heart disease and osteoporosis. And they disrupt some of the not so good enzymes that we've talked about and can help hormones from leaving the body. So here, so they're in many foods, in many plant foods, but the most concentrated forms are flaxseed. That's very high. So it's a good thing to add to yogurt, salads, anything you want. I buy it milled. You need to chew it, and it, you know, because they come from linseeds, so you need to chew, but buy it milled and it's easier to take in. But also soybeans, so things like edamame, the basis of tofu, natto, tempeh. So but really you can see they're in all sorts of foods, but the highest concentrations on the ones on the left. Soy has been deemed controversial and deemed unhealthy. I'm asked that question a lot. So it's always best to go for the most minimally processed organic form of soy that you can go for. So avoid heavily processed soya, milk or yogurt. You can tell by looking at the ingredients on a package what you know, by what else is there in how that's been made, how it's been processed, what else is in there, and if there's anything that shouldn't be in there. Just check question. Okay. Are plant oils the same as vegetable oils? I heard rapeseed should be avoided, but I can't eat dairy. Most plant-based spreads use rapeseed and sunflower oil. Yes, I would use extra virgin olive oil or coconut oil instead of the spreads. Do you recommend the Zoe analysis tool? I've actually tried the Zoe app, and as a nutritionist, I didn't really learn much. I did learn that my response to fat is quite good, but you can also do your own. You can get your own blood sugar monitor if you want to monitor your blood sugar spikes, and you can also do stool testing to test your gut bugs if you want to. But I think for anybody that doesn't really have a good understanding of nutrition, it can be really helpful. Do you recommend drinking diluted apple cider vinegar or taking it in tablet form? I know that's one of the glucose goddesses hacks. I always use apple cider vinegar, the organic raw form with the mother, as a salad dressing because it can help balance blood sugar. And it's up to you if you want to take it diluted. You need to dilute it so it doesn't damage your teeth enamel, or just use it as a salad dressing. I've been told that soy is bad. Not necessarily. It depends on, you know, on what kind of soy we're talking about, and definitely avoid the soy yogurt that's got sugar added. Is drinking oat milk as opposed to cow's milk helpful? There's nothing wrong with cow's milk unless you're intolerant to dairy. And I think the thing you need to be aware of with oat milk is that oats are quite carby and starchy. So a lot of oat milk is quite high in carbs and sugary. So if you're managing your blood sugar and looking at your blood sugar levels, that is something that I would avoid. I drink almond milk. Almonds are the highest protein nut, but again, you want to go for the most minimally processed. A lot of these dairy alternatives have a lot of other things in them, like rice, which is very carby, and other ingredients, stabilizers and things. So have a look and try and find the ones with the most minimal ingredients. So good almond milk, I use is it Plenish? There's two brands that if you look at the side, can't remember the other one, there's two, green one, Plenish I think it's called, and it only has 3 ingredients: almonds, water, and something else. What do you think of protein? Small amounts. Okay, question about creatinine. Small amounts. I need to talk to you about that separately. Right, moving on quickly. Right. So those are the 5 key pillars. As I said, food is just one part of the puzzle. And I talked about all the others earlier on. They all have an impact. They all play a role in driving hormonal imbalances, symptoms, and so which means that they all need to be addressed when you're looking at managing menopause symptoms naturally. And obviously I touched on HRT. Obviously that's not something that I get involved with, I prescribe, although I do have worked with clients that have been taking it. And I just wanted to finish off, just give you a couple of testimonials from people that have used food and the lifestyle changes to manage their symptoms. So Suzanne was somebody that when she first contacted me, she didn't think I'd be able to help her because she thought she had a healthy diet, and she did, but it just wasn't suitable for her symptoms. And so after working with me, you know, she'd improved her energy levels, her mood swings. Don't know why I've got red scribble all over my slide. And she said, you know, I felt like a broken person before. Now I've got the rest of my life to look forward to. So, and then I think I mentioned Kate at the beginning. So she was already taking HRT, but she just couldn't lose weight. And so after we'd worked together for 12 weeks, she eventually had to reduce her dosage of HRT. So it just goes to show the power of food and lifestyle changes. And then another recent client, Jilly, she was tempted to take HRT, but we sorted out, she had a lot of digestive issues. So if you've got IBS, any digestive issues, constipation, you're not going to be eliminating all the hormones that you need to. So those are people that work with me one-to-one on my 12-week program. If you'd like to find out more about it, you can look at my website. You can book in for a chat with me over 30 minutes, free to talk about anything you want to in more detail. I will send you the links to book that in. And also I wanted to talk about, so that's what I was talking about. Oh yes, I've got a special offer on at the moment. So my 12-week program is £200 less than it normally is. But I wanted to talk about another lady that Jen Roach, who runs Fearless in the Kitchen. She runs mood and menopause cookery classes. So if you really want to know how to put some of this into action, Jen is running a mood and menopause class on Monday, the 18th of September at 6 o'clock. And if you book today by midnight, she's offering a 10% discount. So again, I will put the links to book in the chat in a moment, and I will send you the links afterwards with the recording. And then also starting in October, I'm going to be running a group program. So if as an alternative to working with me one-to-one, I'm going to go into all of the areas that we've covered today over 4 weeks, 1 hour a week live, and also be providing you with even 7 days each week, a complete set of menus and recipes, so you can experience what eating for menopause actually feels like. And that is it at 12:58. Let me just check the questions. If anybody has any questions, feel free to unmute and ask me anything you like. Any more questions? I think I've covered all of them. I hope you found that all interesting. Thank you so much for attending. I'll be sending out the links. I'm going to stop the recording. If anybody wants to ask me